High above the busy city of Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar stood on his palace balcony, proud of the powerful kingdom he ruled. Wanting everyone to honor his power, Nebuchadnezzar ordered a massive golden statue to be built in the middle of the desert. When the statue was finished, the king gathered people from all across Babylon for a special ceremony on the plain of Dura. As the music began to play, thousands of people quickly bowed down before the giant golden statue. Dust filled the air as the crowd bowed low to the ground, obeying the king's command. But in the middle of the crowd, 3 young men remained standing while everyone else bowed down. Their names were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they refused to worship anyone except the one true God. Some of the king's officials noticed the 3 friends standing tall and quickly became angry. Soon, whispers spread through the crowd as people realized someone had disobeyed the king's command. When Nebuchadnezzar heard about the 3 friends, he became furious and ordered them to be brought before him at once. Filled with anger, the king demanded to know why they refused to bow before the golden statue. Determined to confront them himself, Nebuchadnezzar stormed down from his palace toward the 3 faithful friends. Standing before them, the king gave the 3 friends one final chance to bow before the statue. "Why won't you bow down?" Nebuchadnezzar demanded as the crowd watched in silence. Shadrach looked the king in the eyes and bravely answered without fear. "We will never worship the statue," Shadrach said firmly. "We only worship the one true God," he continued, as the crowd listened closely. Beside him, Meshach and Abednego stood strong, refusing to turn away from God. Nebuchadnezzar's anger burned as he realized the 3 friends feared God more than they feared him. Pointing toward the blazing furnace, Nebuchadnezzar warned that anyone who refused to bow would be thrown into the fire. Even with the furnace waiting for them, the 3 friends refused to bow before the statue. "Our God is powerful enough to save us from the fire," they answered with bold faith. Furious that anyone would dare defy him, Nebuchadnezzar exploded with anger before the entire kingdom. The king ordered his soldiers to heat the fiery furnace hotter than it had ever been before. The furnace blazed like a raging firestorm, its flames roaring hotter and hotter with every passing moment. Still furious, Nebuchadnezzar commanded the fire to be heated 7 times hotter than normal. Workers hurried to throw more wood into the furnace as flames exploded high into the air. The heat became so powerful that the air around the furnace shimmered and twisted. The furnace burned so hot that even the soldiers near the flames could barely stand the heat. Then Nebuchadnezzar ordered his strongest soldiers to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the fire. Heavy chains and ropes were brought forward as soldiers prepared to carry out the king's command. Even as chains were wrapped around them, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego trusted that God was still with them. With a furious shout, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the 3 friends to be thrown into the fire immediately. As sparks flew through the air, the soldiers pushed the 3 friends closer and closer to the blazing furnace. Without warning, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into the middle of the roaring flames. The fire was so hot that the soldiers who threw them in were destroyed by the flames. The king moved closer to the furnace, expecting to see nothing left inside the flames. But as Nebuchadnezzar stared into the furnace, something unbelievable caught his attention. Suddenly, Nebuchadnezzar's anger disappeared as shock filled his face. Leaning closer to the furnace, the king could hardly believe what he was seeing. Inside the furnace, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were walking through the fire completely unharmed. Nebuchadnezzar stared in amazement, unable to understand how anyone could survive such a fire. One by one, the people gathered around and stared at the unbelievable sight inside the flames. The fire that destroyed everything around them could not even touch the 3 faithful friends. Not even a single hair on their heads was burned by the flames. Their clothes were not burned, and they did not even smell like smoke. For the first time, Nebuchadnezzar realized there was a power greater than his own. Then the king called out for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to come out of the furnace. Humbled by what he had seen, Nebuchadnezzar knew the God of the 3 friends was truly powerful, and he never abandons those who trust in him. The giant golden statue still stood tall, but everyone now knew it had no power against the one true God. Standing safely in the middle of the flames, the 3 friends showed that trusting God is stronger than fear. Pointing toward the furnace, Nebuchadnezzar cried out, "Look! I see 4 men walking in the fire!" In the middle of the fire, God's presence stood beside them, surrounding the 3 friends with peace and protection. With courage in their hearts, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked through the fire knowing God would never leave them. Nebuchadnezzar could hardly believe his eyes as he watched the 3 faithful friends walk out of the burning furnace. "Did we not throw 3 men into the fire?" Nebuchadnezzar asked in amazement. The king's proud heart began to change as he realized the God of Israel was real and powerful. The king's officials nodded silently, still shocked by everything they had seen. Overcome with wonder, Nebuchadnezzar fell to his knees before the power of God. Gathering his courage, the king stepped closer to the furnace and called out to the 3 friends. "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out!" The king shouted. "They are not tied up anymore," the king shouted, "and the fire is not hurting them." The 3 men step out of the furnace, stepping onto the cool stone. Amazed by the miracle they had just witnessed, the crowd stared at them with wonder and amazement. The king looked closely at the 3 friends and saw that the fire had not harmed them at all. As he leaned closer, Nebuchadnezzar realized their hair did not even smell like smoke. As the glowing figure disappeared, the people stood in awe, knowing God himself had protected the 3 faithful friends. The proud king fell to his knees, humbled by the power and faithfulness of God. "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego," the king proclaimed before the amazed crowd. The king declared that God had protected the 3 friends because they trusted him completely. Nebuchadnezzar ordered his messengers to spread the news of God's great power throughout the kingdom. A new command was sent throughout Babylon, telling the people about the greatness of the one true God. Across the kingdom, people heard the king's warning to honor and respect the God who had saved the 3 friends. The king warned that no other God could rescue people the way the God of Israel had done. The king warned that any home that dishonored their God would be left in ruins. Nebuchadnezzar looked at the 3 friends with deep respect, amazed by their courage and faith in God. Because of their faithfulness and courage, the king honored the 3 friends before all of Babylon. Though they were honored by the king, the 3 friends gave glory to God for saving them. The peace on their faces showed everyone that trusting God had driven away their fear. As the 3 friends walked away, the people remembered the day God showed his power in the fire. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego continued their lives with even greater faith, knowing God would always be with them. Long after the flames had faded, the king could not forget the miracle God had done that day. Though he was still king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar now knew there was a greater king above him. The king finally understood that no ruler on earth is greater than the power of God. And throughout Babylon, the story of the 3 faithful friends and God's mighty rescue would never be forgotten. Side by side, the 3 friends walked forward with courage, knowing their faith in God had carried them through the fire. By trusting God through the hardest moment of their lives, the 3 friends became a shining example of faith and courage. For generations, people would remember how God protected the 3 faithful friends in the fiery furnace. Faith has proven more powerful than any furnace, because no fire is stronger than God's power.